Welcome to Newsround, where we do you a recap of top stories for the week. Coming up, federal government holds emergency meeting ahead of planned nationwide protests in August. Appeals to Nigerians to be patient. The National Assembly speedily passes 70,000 naira minimum wage bill. Senate President Godswill Akpabio raises alarm over economic sabotage in the nation's petroleum sector. Plus, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris smashes fundraising records barely 24 hours after President Joe Biden withdraws from the 2024 presidential race. I'll begin news round the nation's capital. The federal government is appealing for more time as it's making efforts to address the current economic challenges in the country. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mr. Mohammed Idris, made the remarks after a closed-door meeting between ministers and secretary to the government of the Federation, urging Nigerians to shelve the plot of the planned protest.
Against the backdrop of the planned nationwide protest on the 1st of August, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation summoned the ministers of President Tinubu's cabinet to an emergency meeting. After the meeting, which held behind closed doors, ministers speak on the outcome with an appeal to Nigerians.
There's no need for any protest. Let us all calm down. A lot is happening. Nigeria is going to move and march on. And we believe that whatever government comes up will be in the interest of Nigeria. We don't think that there is need for any protest. We are appealing for calm. We are appealing for a peaceful resolution or peaceful approach to any issue.
Advise my fellow young Nigerians to disassociate themselves from the planned protest. We need to look at the entire Nigerian project and what the impact of the economic reforms, especially the macroeconomic reforms of the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration.
In a related development, the Minister of Information and National Orientation hosts a meeting with members of the Charismatic Bishops' Conference. The planned nationwide protest is the point of discussion here, as the minister maintains that the federal government makes a pledge to uphold people's rights to protest.
The president is not an opponent of protest of any kind, but the president is an opponent of violence. He is an opponent of anything that will negatively hamper the well-being of Nigerians. We know that it is almost impossible to hold this protest and then have peace at the end of the day.
We have rather decided to go all out and call for a truce. We have decided to sue for peace and to humbly request that our brothers and sisters who are aggrieved in one way or the other, that they will allow some time while we continue to communicate and negotiate with this government on the areas that are pertinent to them.
The minister adds that the federal government is working on a policy to pay students of tertiary institutions and unemployed graduates some stipends pending their formal employment. From Abuja, Victoria Longjohn for Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, traditional rulers in the country have also called for patience with government in the face of the planned protest by some Nigerians. Speaking in the State House after a meeting with President Bola Tinubu, the leaders said there's need for all Nigerians to continue to work with the government to address the challenges facing the country.
Officers at the ready, the red carpet laid out. The State House is ready for newly appointed ambassadors. the High Commissioner of Botswana. One after the other handed in their letters of credence to President Bola Tinubu. In his remarks to the U.S. ambassador, President Tinubu is quoted in a statement by his special advisor on media, Ajuri Ngalale, to have touched on the issue of the planned protest by some Nigerians, saying, "During the military era, we made our voices heard against dictatorship, and I was part of the group that engaged in peaceful protests without resorting to the destruction of property. We've worked hard to ensure 25 years of unbroken democracy, and I will continue to maintain this democracy. Inasmuch as we believe that demonstrations are part of democracy, we will never encourage any protest that lead to the destruction of lives and property." Afterwards, the president meets with some governors led by the chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum. They, however, declined to speak after the meeting. Next was a meeting with traditional rulers from across the country. In attendance were some ministers and the Inspector General of Police. After the meeting, the traditional rulers called for calm and patience.
It is very difficult to build, but it is the easiest to destroy. We are all stakeholders of this country. We should be stronger as a nation together.
This protest, I know that it's catching you very, very high in your neck. But if you give us the chance, let us not destroy our own country. I ask you, think of Libya. Libya was a beautiful country. What has happened to Libya, we don't want it to happen here. Let's go home. Let's continue to strive the best that we can and continue to work with the government to see if we can proffer some solutions.
Well, message we are taking back to our people is to be calm, to exercise patience, and also to listen to the words of wisdom coming from the traditional rulers, from the governors, because we have spoken to the president and he has given us the blueprint of what he has been doing over time, and we're hopeful, that inshallah it will be well.
It was a busy day for the president as he also met with a delegation of Islamic scholars. They speak on the outcome of their meeting.
Internally, we are against insurrection because this is not a protest. It is a protest that has the potential to lead to insurrection, the destruction of lives and properties and infrastructures. We are appealing to the people to shelve it. It is an ill wind that blows no one no good.
It will appear these meetings have proven invaluable in ensuring an exchange of information, all in a bid to ensure the peace and unity of the country. From the presidential villa, Lanre Lasese, Channels Television News.
And the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Kayode Egbetokun, is also warning organizers of a protest that the police will not condone any form of violent demonstrations capable of creating chaos in the country. Addressing strategic police managers at a conference in Abuja, Mr. Egbetokun says the police will not sit idly and allow a repeat of the 2020 NSAS protest, which led to the loss of innocent lives and properties.
It is important I address an issue of urgent national importance, which appears to have gained some momentum, particularly on the social media in the past few weeks. Some groups of people, self-appointed crusaders and influencers, have been strategizing and mobilizing potential protesters to unleash terror in the land under the guise of replicating the recent Kenya protest, the Beku. While the force acknowledges the right to peaceful protest as enshrined in our constitution, we must ensure that these protests do not snowball into violence or disorder. As a nation, we have had more than our fair share of violent protests, which with rather dastardly consequences. The last NSAS protest led to wanton destruction of public assets, including police stations, court, transport infrastructure, and loss of several lives. Tales of sorrow, tears, and blood followed what was supposedly intended to be a well-intentioned exercise. Rather than to lead to any positive outcome, EndSARS merely aggravated crime rates and insecurity in several parts of the country. Indeed, we are yet to fully recover from the huge economic losses and deep-seated psychological and emotional trauma inflicted upon our people by this protest.
And moving away from that, it's now official. The National Assembly has passed the National Minimum Wage Act Amendment Bill into law. Passage was effected following a correspondence transmitted by President Bola Tinubu requesting expedited consideration of a bill for an act to amend the National Minimum Wage Act 2019 to increase the national minimum wage from 30,000 naira to 70,000 naira and reduce the time for periodic review of the national minimum wage from 5 years to 3 years. In a unanimous vote and without much debate, the National Minimum Wage Bill speedily scaled the 3 legislative processes and was passed.
Lawmakers resume for the first plenary of the week with a loaded agenda, top of which is a correspondence from the President Bola Tinubu seeking expedited consideration and passage of the National Minimum Wage Bill, which is read for the first time on the floor.
I forward herewith the Minimum Wage Bill 2024.
Without further ado, the lawmakers unanimously voted in favor as the bill speedily scales both second and third reading.
A bill for an act to amend the National Minimum Wage Act 2019 and to increase the national minimum wage and reduce the time for periodic review of the national minimum wage from 5 years to 3 years and for related matters 2024. Third reading.
Similarly, the executive bill enjoyed the backing of lawmakers in the House of Representatives.
We did our calculations. We got the data from the Account General Office before we applied this figure. So we know the money is enough to, from now to December 31st, to take care of that 70,000. So, I mean, it's actually it's enough.
Moments later, the leader of the Senate announces the defection of one senator from Labour Party to the APC.
The strangers are coming in to witness the cross-carpeting of one of our distinguished colleagues.
The upper chamber subsequently suspends its rules to admit Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo State, who is present to witness the defection of Senator Onyenwuchi Ezenwa, representing Imo East Senatorial District.
This decision is due to the intractable division and crisis in the Labour Party.
The latest defection is described as a victory for the administration.
With his coming to our party in Imo State, we have the 3 senators of APC now in Imo State, and that is also had added impetus to the evangelization, political evangelization we are doing in the southeast region of the country.
Back in the chamber, a bill for an act to amend the Nigeria Police Act 2020, seeking to enable a person appointed to office to remain in office until the end of a stipulated term.
When we simply give them the opportunity to serve as far as the tenure in the letter indicates, I think that will be abused because somebody will feel he will not be removed, regardless.
This bill is only seeking to guarantee the tenure of office of the Inspector General of Police.
The executive bill transmitted by President Bola Tinubu is subsequently passed.
Third reading taken and passed.
The Senate has approved an amendment of 6.2 trillion naira to the 2024 appropriation bill, raising the budget from 28.7 trillion to 35.05 trillion naira. The Senate also approved the Finance Act Amendment Bill 2023 to impose 70% windfall levy on banks. The Senate has therefore adjourned till September 17, 2024. From the National Assembly, Gloria Omezoke, Channels Television News.
Thank you for staying with us. You're still watching News Round live on Channels Television. To other stories now, the President of the Senate Senator Godswill Akpabio has raised an alarm over the persistent economic sabotage, which has undermined investor confidence in the petroleum sector, declaring that the Senate must identify and hold those accountable for the criminal acts. Senator Akpabio made the declaration during the inauguration of the Senate ad hoc committee to investigate alleged sabotage in the sector.
The petroleum sector, which has faced oil theft and sabotage over the years, is at the heart of concerns here as lawmakers converge on the National Assembly, led by the President of the Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio. The upper chamber is launching a probe into the disturbing trend of alleged malpractice and sabotage in the sector.
The shadow of economic sabotage looms large, threatening to destabilize this critical industry, and by extension, our nation's financial stability. These acts of sabotage could cripple our economy and hinder our progress for generations to come. It did not start in the administration of President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, but it has led us to where we are today.
Inaugurating the ad hoc committee, the Senate President reels out charges and the Riot Act.
Identify the perpetrators where you can, their methods and modus operandi, their networks, and then report same to the Nigerian Senate for further legislative actions.
Elsewhere, a crucial stakeholders meeting between the Joint Committee on Finance and the Executive is convened on the 2024 Finance Amendment Bill.
Our discussion today will cover the detailed provisions of the bill, including the Federal Inland Revenue Service's role in assessing, collecting, and enforcing the levy.
Lawmakers sought answers to some of the raging concerns about the executive bill expected to address the nation's infrastructure deficit.
Area of worry is with respect to the penalty. We need to be very explicit on the issue of penalty.
The finance minister explains that the monies to be taken from the banks should not be considered as tax, but levies to reshuffle wealth.
It is a levy on the 2024 realized gains from foreign exchange within the banking system. It's going to be a share of the amount that was realized. Whether we end up with 50-50, 60-40, we are here in an interactive session, which in a democratic setting is an important part of coming out with a final figure.
All manufacturing entities in Nigeria, they declare total of 1.7 trillion losses just as a result of Forex. And anywhere in the world, you as a government, your duty is to redistribute the wealth in order to sustain the progress and prosperity of a nation.
Although all parties were invited, the CBN and bank representatives were conspicuously absent from the crucial meeting. They asked to appear before the committee on Tuesday, July 22, 2024. From the National Assembly, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
And the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria, CIPM, has held its annual forum focusing on how best professionals can leverage on the organization's greatest assets, which is its human resource for business success. This is with the theme Strategic People's Management, Leveraging Your Greatest Assets for Business Success. The forum provided an opportunity for various speakers to touch on important areas companies must key into in running their businesses in order to maximize available human capacity and the most essential resource of their organizations.
Maintenance sustainable people.
It is the second edition of the Chief Executive Officers, Chief Human Resource Officers, and Human Resource Directors Forum of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria, CIPM 2024.
So I ended up being chief engineer.
HR professionals are here to navigate how members can utilize the most vital human resource within their establishments.
We need to focus more and more on the strength of people because their strength is their nature. We are training them, developing them to do more of what they love. Nobody trained me to be an I, but I love to come up with new ideas.
Other guest speakers go further to suggest ways of maximizing human capacities within an organization.
So the first would be around business, understanding the business. The second is chemistry, and it's just building that relationship and cultivating that relationship. It's not something that would happen, you just do one. It's something that has to continue over time. And I think the third thing I would say would be around communication.
Your HR person is trying their best to learn the business, to learn you, to accommodate you. Meanwhile, they're also supposed to be your advisor, your consultant, your ally. You are supposed to learn human resources as well.
President and Chairman of the Governing Council, CIPM, speaks further on contributions of the body to business entities and the economy at large.
You cannot do anything at all without people, and when we talk about people, we're talking about, strategic talent. We are talking about resourcing either businesses or public service organizations with the right kind of talent and the right kind of people who will help drive this. So what they do invariably, is what translates into, of course, growth in the economy.
It is important that individuals that sit in those roles, occupy those roles, have the requisite knowledge, skills, and experience to deliver to the organization and thereby impact on the sustainability, the profitability, and the bottom line of the organization.
The Chief Executive Officers, Chief Human Resource Officers and Human Resource Directors Forum is an annual event that brings together top executives, human resource leaders, industry experts to discuss and explore key trends, challenges, and innovations in the field of human resources and organizational leadership, targeting business growth.
And in Akwa Ibom State, the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Waheed Ayilara, reveals that his men have uncovered an armory in the private mortuary of a Okobo local government area. The police chief explained the operatives stormed the mortuary in intelligence following the arrest of a kidnapping syndicate. Take a listen.
To curb the actions of criminals in Akwa Ibom State, the Akwa Ibom State Police Command have apprehended some criminals. Addressing the press during the parade, the State Police Commissioner Waheed Ayilara says operatives of the command, through credible information and painstaking investigation, had recovered firearms and ammunition used by a notorious kidnapping syndicate led by an alleged wanted kidnapper, Ubong Efyong Achibong, also known as Condiment. He said the syndicate was responsible for kidnappings and killing of several persons in the Oron axis of the state and had been on the wanted list of the command. The said firearms were recovered at a private mortuary being used as the armory at Ekeya Okobo local government area. The firearms are 2 AK-47 rifles, 2 G3 rifles, 1 double-barrel rifle, 1 single-barrel rifle, 5 magazines, and 7 live ammunition.
In the process, one of the gang members was neutralized, and the fake man that is using as an armorer was also arrested. He's here with us.
Other suspects were paraded for other crimes including murder, robbery, human trafficking, rape, burglary, and vandalization of public property.
You people will recollect that what we call house-to-house robbery in Ujo and its environment, that people will come and be moving from one house to house and be robbing people of their goods. We have information about them that they have robbed and they are trying to sell the loot.
Some of the suspects admitted to their involvement in the said crimes.
We are actually accused of those items, which we've recovered those items, the fridge and the plasma, with some compressors, which were 6 in numbers, but God have done it. I and my friend is just remaining, 4 have left, so we're just looking unto God for forgiveness.
The ones here are all
They are the girls that are pregnant. And I came, some people brought them, some came on their own, maybe their parents drove them, they came. And each one that comes, I will carry that one to police.
CP Ayilara appreciates the state government for its support, as well as sister security agencies and good-spirited members of the public whose credible and timely information led to the huge achievements. He's also appealing for support and cooperation from the public.
And we had news round with the 2024 U.S. presidential elections, almost 24 hours after President Joe Biden announced his withdrawal from the country's presidential race and endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris. It appears Harris herself might have found favor with some leading members of the Democratic Party. The vice president smashed fundraising records as the party's donors opened their wallets for her in the aftermath of President Biden's decision to step aside. More leading Democrats are said to be backing her bid to clinch the party's ticket and have increased donations. Harris has said she will earn the nomination of the party, a huge challenge for her. If she does seal it, November's election will be historic in more ways than one. And that's News Round for the week. Thank you for watching. I'm Ladi Williams. Bye-bye.